Hello guys, how is everything? I want to continue from where we stopped actually. I think we did a couple of videos on YouTube where we talked about the importance of the purpose of humanity generally. How it is important for us to have a progressive society. I talked about two types of society and everything. Trying to create like a purpose, like a foundation for our work. And after some time we stopped, and then I started doing some other things. I had to put some things together, but at least a lot of things have been happening, and I just realized that I can no longer just keep quiet. I'm now realizing that our work is becoming very, very important, and so we have to start doing things. And today I just want to just talk. Just put things in perspective, what we're doing, and just talk a little bit about how we are going to be moving forward, and kind of like lay a foundation of the our subsequent broadcasts and videos and everything, and they just move on from there. First of all, I'd like to say this. When we look at many of all these industrialized nations, the West, America, Canada, the UK, Germany, and then in the East you have Japan, now China, and India coming up, and you have South Korea, Singapore, and Indonesia coming up, and Vietnam, and on like that. These nations and everything, and then you look at them, and there's a temptation for us to see them as for us to see the current world order as that is how things are. You can't change anything. But I'd like to challenge us, just like ask some questions, just like challenge our mind. Let's just start asking and questioning our perceptions about the world that we are living in and how things work. And the first thing that the first notion I want to question is, why do you think these nations are the way they are? Do you think the West, they are inherently smarter? They are just good like that. The way there are some people that actually believe that. Are they inherently smarter than us? That's why they are doing things. Or are our leaders inherently evil? Everybody that comes into government in an African nation or South Asian nation or something like that, they are just inherently evil and so incapable of doing anything good. And I'll say no. Of course, we know that is not true. The reason why their nations are successful and prosperous, and why it seems like our nations are not, is just because of some things that are in place in their nation, the way they organize their society, and these are the things that we are going to be challenging in our broadcast on YouTube, to challenge these notions, to try and break down the things that actually make this nation. For example, let me just give an instance. At the beginning of the 20th century, that's the 1900s, the early 1910, 1920s, upon like that. Most of these nations, America and the West, most of the nations in the West, they were not as prosperous. They had a lot of slums. They had, they won't go a little further back, to the 19th century. That's towards the end of the 19th century, the 1810s, the 1890s, the 1880s, or on like that. You see that if you read through history, you see that these nations were very poor. They were poor, poorer than the poorest regions in many African countries. You understand? They were very poor. So all of a sudden, everything just changed. Of course, they had very rich elites. There are nations where they had very rich people, but the bulk of their society, the bulk of the people in their society were very poor, And all of a sudden, in the 20th century, after the First World War, then the Second World War, everything just started. First World War, and then towards the Second World War, and everything just changed. And then now it looks like, oh, everybody in America is always rich, has always been rich. No. Certain things happen during those periods and everything. Let me just mention it. There's a concept in economics called the welfare state. There's a concept called the welfare state. And these guys, they started experimenting with this concept and everything, basically using the government, viewing the government as an instrument to alleviate people from poverty. And they experimented this concept of society, because initially we were just like, okay, please, let's everybody fend for themselves and everything. The responsibility of the government is not to take care of you. You understand? But some economists came up and started questioning this notion and said, look, the government ought to take care of, certain things actually precipitated that, the First World War and then the Great Depression. They now realize that the government should take more active role in the lives of people, in the economic future of the citizens and everything. And so the welfare state, so they came up with the concept of the welfare state, and it really helped to alleviate a lot of people out of poverty, and then it created this middle class that is now the bedrock of their current economy now. So I won't say for the first time, but yeah, for the first time, a nation could actually be both a producer and consumer of finished products. Because if you look at macroeconomics, there are 4 parameters that you use to determine the GDP. There are 4 contributors to the GDP of an economy. We have government spending, we have corporate spending, that's investment, we have consumer spending, and then we have import and export. Initially, the growth was actually based on export alone. So you produce as much as you can, and then you export as much as you can, So that was actually what accounted, because it made sense, when you produce and then you export, you get foreign exchange from other countries that you exported. So, and that was how but when the middle class now became a thing, and then it became a force, a driving force of the economy, making up the bulk of the economy, and then consumer spending now became a major contributor to the GDP of the economy, giving companies more money, as on and on like that. A lot of economic structure, basically, as they made people richer, the country as a whole became richer. You understand? And that is actually what what funded this prosperity that I say. It's not that long. It's a fairly recent occurrence, fairly recent event. You understand? So we shouldn't look at it as if, okay, they are just like there and then we are here. No. Yes. And we can actually do something about it. What I'm trying to say is that, look, our problem, our challenge that we are facing right now is not uncommon. So it's just for us to sit down and think. Yeah, the 20th century might be the century of Europe, of the West, and of the current developed nations right now. But let us make the 21st century our own century. Let's take what we can take from whatever they are doing and then adapt it. Though the principles that we're going to be talking about in this channel is going to be quite different, slightly different, from what they are doing, because our challenges are slightly different from their own challenges. Do you understand? We are going to analyze a lot of things and everything, and we are going to take time we are going to discuss with experts too, come up with something, and because it's not just about talk, we have a lot of programs that we've planned and we're going to implement and execute in the course of time. But before that time, we have to lay an ideological foundation, upon which we are going to do all these our programs. Do you understand? And that is going to be what we are going to be discussing on this channel. So please stay tuned. Like, subscribe, and hit the click on the notification icon, so that every time we come up with new videos and I assure you, by the grace of God Almighty, that it's going to be regular. It's going to be more regular, and everybody's going to be happy, because I believe that Nigeria is not hopeless. I believe that Nigeria is not just it does not just have a future. I believe that the future of the world is dependent on us, on what we do in this nation. And I don't want us to disappoint, I believe that we can actually pull this off. We can create something out of this nation. I believe that. And the key lies with the youths. Thank you very much.